Welcome to the very first podcast recording for By the Rim, your newest place for unbiased sports content or basketball content, more specifically. So, today I have my friend Roman here, and we're going to do a quick recap of the season. We're going to start off talking about the finals, and then we're going to move into some more team specific stuff. Now, Roman, how you doing today, bro?
Pretty good, man. Thank you for having me. It's an honor, man.
Thanks for joining.
Of course,
Now,
dude. That's awesome.
before we get into anything, did you see the news about Josh Giddey getting traded to the Chicago Bulls to start off the offseason?
I did, man, and I think we got a lot to talk about here because I heard it sounded like you definitely had some feelings about it, and I do as well. So
Yeah, as a resident Thunder fan, I was a little bit shaken, but it was expected that he was going to be probably moved this offseason. But I didn't expect it to be to I did not expect it to be to the Bulls, and I also didn't expect to get Alex Caruso in exchange. I didn't know that his trade value was that high. So, we'll get into that, but that's how we'll start off. So, let me see. First thing to talk about, the Boston Celtics, 2024 NBA champions. How do you feel about that? Like, what are your thoughts on, their season and how they did in the
yeah,
finals and all the playoffs and all that?
for sure, man. Well, it was funny at first. It was funny joining all the memes and making fun of Boston, but when you really look at it, dude, I honestly think like just looking at this team statistically from the way they drive to their 3 pointer to their versatility, I think they're genuinely, I mean, one of the best. I mean, by the numbers, one of the best teams we've ever seen. And I know people like to make fun of them and whatnot, but I think this team is well deserving. And I mean, they have just such a phenomenal squad. The way they play together, from Derek White to Drew Hall. I mean, just having Drew Holiday off the bench, being that stopper, is insane. And then, really, if I think if Kristaps Porzingis wasn't healthy, the Mavericks might have had a chance. I still think that the Celtics still would have won the series, probably a 6 or 7 game series. But with Kristaps Porzingis, this team is virtually like basically unstoppable. Like, genuinely, it's insane.
Yeah, like when Kristaps came in for game one and was just violent against the Mavericks, pretty much like it was a scary sight. And then he went down again. And then the Mavs almost felt like they had a little bit of a chance, but then the Celtics just made sure to capitalize on everything that they could. And then
Sure.
Porzingis came back and made sure that he did what he needed to do. And so, I mean, what else
Yeah,
can you really say?
I know it's crazy. I'm looking at the stats right now, and Kristaps Porzingis at game one was pretty damn incredible. But by the time he came back, it looks like he kind of just filled in where he really kind of needed to. They didn't really need him to be. I mean, just looking at this box, I'm looking at the average for the finals, and it's just insane to me because like you got, was it 5 players in double figures? You got Sam Hauser with 8. I mean, Al Horford with 7. I mean, this was a team effort. Like,
Can't forget half
genuinely,
court
like,
specialist Peyton Pritchard.
yeah, of course, Peyton Pritchard not far behind, man. And like, it's just crazy to me. And the fact that like Jaylen Brown won the Finals MVP when I mean, looking at the numbers, obviously Jaylen Brown shot a lot better and he
Mm-hmm.
brought that like incredible defense. But like by the numbers, I mean, Jason Tatum because it could have easily won the Finals MVP as well.
Yeah.
Like honestly, and hell, I mean, you could even say everyone. It's just what's incredible about this team. I'm just looking at it, dude. Like every single one of these guys are so like tall, so lanky, so such good defenders. Like I mean, every single one of these guys, like every one of these guys, even Al Horford has old age, you can kind of switch him around. Like everyone can just switch off the pick and roll. They know how to get off an open shot and fill in real fast. So it's just
Mm-hmm.
crazy.
Yeah, it's a really well constructed team, and you have to give all the credit to the Celtics organization. Brad Stevens, um, they're I mean, whoever put him in charge, I guess, like that's a really good job on them to be able to build such a well-rounded team. And then during the regular season, they were dominant too. They won 65 games this year, right?
Was it 65 or 67?
I think it was 67. Hold up. Let me
Yeah,
double check that.
yeah. So I'm gonna look up right now. It's either 65 or 67 record. It was 60. Okay, it was 64. We're both wrong, but still, though, dude, that is insane. Like
Yeah.
when it's interesting because like everyone else, it was such a weird year because like both seeds are both Eastern and Western conferences from the first for the Western Conference, the first to like the eighth were all fighting for position. In the Eastern Conference, the two to the eight were basically all in the line. But then the Celtics were the ones that just like from literally from like I think 10 games in, they had already been like, all right, we're like 5 games ahead of everyone at all times at least.
Pretty much. But
Yeah, it's
like I
incredible.
think the Celtics are like a perfect example of the dynamic of a very good and well put together team. So I think like seen a lot of people complaining about like when the all NBA teams came out and Jason Tatum was first team, we all knew it was gonna happen. Like he was the best player on the best team in the league. And like people like, oh, like his numbers went down and he's blah blah blah. Like I think
Yeah,
Jalen Brown only averaged like 23 this year. Hold up,
yeah,
let me
it's like
check on that.
22 or 23. And then Jason Tatum was like what, like 27,
Yeah, so
something like that.
Tatum was about 27. Jalen Brown was at 23. Porzingis was at 20. Derek White at 15, then Drew at about 13. So like that's a
Yeah,
really good or pretty well balanced. You know, you have your main hitters and then the rest of the guys are still doing good. Like having 3 20 point per game guys is
yeah,
definitely a benefit. But that kind of brings me to a point where it's like one of the nice things about having a lot of good players is you don't have to do so much and then you are able to be really good at the things that you do. So like when you see these really good like these super stacked teams, they tend to be super efficient because you have a bunch of guys who are capable of averaging 25 plus, just 3 or 4 of them, and
mm-hmm.
then they all play together so they only have to average 15 to 23 points between
Right.
4 players. And so like you're getting the talent level of a guy who would be considered, you know, top 20, who's playing at the statistical level at like a top 40 guy. You know what I mean?
Right. Right. Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
a
You want to get
massive
you
benefit.
you want to get into maybe a hot topic about the Celtics?
Yes. What do you
What
got?
do you? I honestly, I think I mean I love Jason Tatum, but I think I think there's an argument that Jalen Brown could be better than him, and that he, especially during this playoffs, and I get that like we were just discussing, this obviously was a team effort. I
Mm-hmm.
get that, but a lot throughout this entire playoffs, it really seemed like Jason Tatum almost just kind of fell into a more of I'm using this loosely, but like a role player role, basically. He didn't seem as aggressive, and he kind of has issues with not asserting himself. You see him do it all the time where you can tell he's laxing up on his game when he's just trying to do middies, trying to do mid-range jumpers. He's not driving. I mean, he's literally, I mean, it's like 6'8", 6'9", super long wingspan, and he's trying to do like Kobe jumpers, you know, when, you know, with that, but with Jalen Brown, like he kind of showed me throughout this playoffs that, I mean, super consistent, just a freak athlete, incredible, like so good on defense too. He was incredible this playoffs. And I honestly think I, there could be an argument that Jalen Brown might be the better of the two. I don't know how you feel about that, but
I'm actually gonna disagree
all
because
right.
here's the thing. Hold up. Let me pull up these stats real quick. And it's not even just about the stats, but
For sure.
all right, so Celtics this year. All right, yeah. So if you actually look at the production, or not even the production, if you watch the games, the reason that Jalen Brown and even Drew Holiday and Porzingis they looked and did so well is because Jason Tatum took all of the attention. So it's like every team they have to match up their players. The best
Mm-hmm.
player on the other team gets the best defender, and you know second best and blah blah blah. Until you go down the
Right.
line, and so when it comes to the Celtics, Tatum is by far the biggest threat because he's a triple threat. He's a threat to
Mm-hmm.
score, he's a threat to pass, and he's a threat to shoot. So there's you have to try and find a way to take something away. And
Mm-hmm.
so because of how lethal Jason Tatum is, like you remember it was either last year or the year before, he scored 50 in a game 7. So like
Yeah, yeah.
Tatum is a playoff performer and he always has been. And having all of your defense focused on him, it allows the other guys to get the weaker matchups. So let's see. Who was the first round? First round, it was against the Heat, right? So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, so with any cross matching stuff, I believe they had see Jimmy was out.
Jimmy was out. Yeah,
It was either Jaime Jaquez or maybe Cody Martin or Caleb
maybe,
Martin, whichever
yeah,
the
maybe,
Martin twin.
yeah, maybe the K. Yeah. Let me see.
Yeah, but one of those guys. So Miami is going to send their best defender, who normally would probably be Jimmy Butler, and put him onto Jason Tatum for that series. And hold on, let me look up the stats again real quick. Yeah, for the Heat series, Jason Tatum, he kind of put up a pedestrian 22, 10, and 5.
Hmm. I
So,
think that's I like okay. Um, I do think I think if you're really looking at, it, I do think Jason Tatum's probably the better player. But I just think my main issue was, I mean, this team was great, so he kind of had the great team to fall back on. But when I'm looking at Jaylen Brown throughout this playoffs and Jason Tatum, I just see Jaylen Brown, who was just way more consistent. You know what I mean? I think the consistency was the big thing for me. And
yeah.
I think Jason Tatum can be very inconsistent. And like I said, I think it has a lot to do with when he is actually being aggressive, driving to the basket, and making heads up plays and asserting himself. I think he's genuinely. I mean, with his capabilities, I mean, he can play better than almost anyone in the league. But
Mm-hmm.
I see him a lot of times with this like on and off switch, where like Jaylen Brown. I won't argue that he can rise to the level that Jason Tatum can. I just really like the way that I mean, he's always been just a consistent 20 to 26, 25 point per game scorer. And he's consistent too. Like, I remember what was that 2022, the Warriors versus the Celtics. I mean, Jaylen Brown was the one that was the finals. I'm talking about. Jaylen Brown was
Yeah.
the one that was I mean, they lost obviously, but he was carrying that team for a few of those games, you know. And so I love Jason Tatum. I just think even in this win, you know, they won. Congrats, celebration. There's a lot of things I think he should still. I mean, he can look at his game and say, okay, this is where I need to get better. I need to keep my on switch always on. You know, keep
Mm-hmm.
staying assertive, keep staying aggressive. So, like I said, when he's doing that, I mean, he can outplay anybody. You know.
Yeah, that makes sense. I can't really argue that. I just I just think you have to, specifically with these playoffs, you just always have to keep in account, the fact that Tatum was getting everyone's best. Jaylen Brown and the Drew Holiday, they end up getting the second or third best, depending on the matchup. And so,
For sure.
like, because that scoring gravity or just the gravity in general, like Steph Curry has it, that's what made the Warriors so good, is because everyone was scared of
Oh,
Curry. That
yeah.
allowed those other guys to just turn up. And then when KD was there, it was just not even it wasn't even a story anymore.
Yeah.
It
Honestly,
just
Steph might like. I know it's not a stat they show, but if it was, man, dude, he'd probably be the league leader in hockey assists of all time. You
Yeah.
know, the pass that the secondary pass, like he'd probably be all time. Steph Curry would be.
Yeah, he's just lethal. And that team, they worked together so well. But yeah, with the Celtics, man, they took care of business as they were supposed to. One thing
Definitely.
that it's so funny, but it's so dumb, is all the Tatum hate because he's corny. Like
I'll say I've thrown a little bit. I've done a little bit too, but
it's funny though, like objectively, because it's so clear that he's chasing a moment.
for
And
sure,
that's
dude.
like that's objectively hilarious. There's
I
no
think
there's
that
no other way to put that.
I think that's why he's been getting so much hate too, dude.
No, they
Honestly,
were hating on
genuinely.
him way before anyway.
Yeah,
Like
that's true.
I don't really understand it. Like his celebration, like I get it because it was corny, but it was really, really funny. But
Yeah.
just in general, I don't understand the Jason Tatum hate. Like he's a good player, he's a nice guy, he doesn't talk too much, he hangs out with his kid. Like, what is there to hate
Mhm.
on him? You know what I mean? I think
Yeah,
is it just because he plays for the Celtics?
I genuinely think it's not only just playing with the Celtics, but I think a lot of people are like, not saying I feel this, but a lot of people are angry that people view him as like, oh, you got handed this fucking amazing team and you can slack off and become a role player on days and your team's going to win regardless. That's a
Mm-hmm.
lot. I mean, that's a really straw man kind of argument to make of how
Yeah,
people view him sometimes, you know?
that makes sense. It is still really funny though. I'm not gonna lie.
For sure. Hey, I almost forgot too. Let's we talking about the Celtics and their win. Now I think it's time to flip side onto, unless you got more about the Celtics, but the Mavericks and see what they could do and what they didn't do.
Yeah, the Mavericks, man. I gotta. There's a lot to say, and I actually have a lot of thoughts on this. So yeah, let's get into that.
For
What do you
sure.
think first off?
Oh man. Well, honestly, I mean, looking at the stats, dude, it's Luka Doncic came. He didn't shoot the best. His field goal percent, actually, no, his field goal, he's shooting fine. I mean, Luka came, dude. Like came to play. PJ Washington didn't do good. Derek Jones. I mean, what really got, I think the biggest takeaway is this team lacks 3-point shooters, and the Celtics abused Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving on that. I mean, their rotation, they were rotating off of Gafford. They were every time Derek Jones. I mean, Derek Jones is almost unplayable because every time he got on the floor, they basically. I mean, it was
You got the
no one was
Josh
dark.
Giddey treatment.
Yeah, literally the Josh Giddey treatment. Absolutely. Every time, every pick and roll Luka or Kyrie did, there was a man rotating off of either Derek Jones or even what was crazy to me. Actually, I think the biggest defensive scheme that the Celtics did, which I thought was so interesting, when we look at the Minnesota Timberwolves series, um, uh, Luka Doncic, every single time he was coming off the pick and roll, they sagged off him, and it gave Gafford wide open dunks throughout the entire series. While the Celtics, they schemed that out to like I think we only saw a few, I mean, maybe one or two of the pick and roll lob dunks to Gafford from Luka Doncic. When
Mm-hmm.
on the flip side, the Timberwolves were getting eaten alive by that play. So
Yeah, because they kept trying to bring a Rudy Gobert to match the screen or something
yeah,
to like pick him up and drop, but he was way too high and it just left the lob threats open every time. But
and that's
I remember in that OKC series, I kept watching the Thunder blitz him, and then he would find someone wide open every single time except for
I
once.
remember that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I talked to you about that. Because the only
it's
time that they didn't
insane.
score was because Josh Green decided to pump fake a wide open three to let Josh Giddey close out, and then I don't think he turned it over. I think they just passed it out and they had to get it. They had to look for another shot, but still, it was like
When he literally had the wide open shot too.
wide open shot and he pump faked and tried to drive.
Mm-hmm.
That was the only time that they didn't score off of a blitz against the Thunder. And
Yep.
so like it made me think like if you have a really good one-on-one defender, just make Luka do everything. And that's what the Celtics did.
Yep.
Like they did
100%.
not allow anybody else to get any kind of rhythm because Luka's gonna do what he's gonna do. But the fact that
Mm-hmm.
they almost completely shut down Kyrie, and then the fact that the rest of the role players just weren't stepping up because they
Yeah.
couldn't get rhythm because they were making Luka do everything,
Yep. Yep.
that was a really good defensive strategy. And so going
100%.
forward, I've seen a lot of people talk about this, but they need to add someone else or make Luka do less. So
Mm-hmm.
like if you think about the roster construction right now, how many guys do you think can like legitimately like create their own shots or be a playmaker?
Genuinely, the only ones is Kyrie and I mean Luka. Dante Exum off the bench, but I would hardly consider him creating it. Like he cannot create his own shot. He's a good passer, but and then they
Yeah.
do. What's funny is, I mean, I guess the older he gets, he's been a defensive liability. But that was what Tim Hardaway Jr. was supposed to be for them, but it just hasn't worked out. He
Yeah,
hasn't been getting in it.
he was the third leading scorer all season, and then he was unplayable until one quarter.
Mm-hmm. So I mean, when once you look at that, dude, you literally have just Kyrie, and the issue is too is if you just had the Luka and Kyrie as your only people that can play make and do things with the ball, at least put 3-point shooters around them. They have no consistent three. I don't think they have any. Josh Green maybe, but
No,
they
not
really
even. Josh Green's not consistent.
Oh no,
Uh,
he's yeah. I was thinking of someone else. My bad. Yeah, there's no one. There's literally yeah. There's no one. They have zero. actual consistent 3-point shooters on this team, which is insane to me that they even made to the finals. I mean, that just goes to show how great Luka is, you know?
Yeah, he not necessarily backpacked, but the fact that PJ Washington decided to turn into prime Ray Allen against the
Yeah,
Thunder.
yeah, that
Really?
was insane, bro.
Oh my gosh, that was
He was,
so
yeah,
frustrating.
yeah. I bet for you, huh?
Yeah, but I thought the PJ acquisition was going to be really good because he is pretty dynamic, but his shot has been really inconsistent the last like year or two. So,
Yeah.
I
The
mean,
thing is,
I don't even know.
I think PJ Washington could still be a great piece for him, but not like your third. I mean, basically your third option. I mean, basically, you
Yeah,
know.
that's what he is right now. But you don't want PJ Washington to be your third option. You want
Right.
so one thing I've heard is that they should really pursue Paul George in his free agency right now because
Yeah.
I don't know how much money they'd be able to pay because I know Kyrie's under a max, and then Luka,
Mm-hmm.
you know, he's probably going to get the biggest contract ever whenever he's up for extension or another one. But yeah, Paul George, like if he would be willing to buy or to accept like a lower contract, then
Kind of
he
buy
could,
into the culture, right? Buy into the what you can do.
yeah, like he's almost exactly what they would need because they need
Mm-hmm.
a two-way guy who can create and shoot. And Paul George does all of that, which honestly makes you think that he should actually be considered much better than what he actually is, like generally speaking, because like there's so few guys who can play both ends of the floor, create their own shot, create for others, and shoot like 40%.
Right.
Like that's and
Paul
he's
George is
6'9".
yeah, Paul George is honestly like I don't think he gets enough credit. He's a rare breed in the NBA, dude. Like that's a rare
Extremely.
dynamic player, dude. Like you don't see much. I mean, there's only a few guys like that in the world that can do what he does at his size too. You know.
Yeah, like the more I think about it, like the crazier that gets.
Mm-hmm.
But
How about
one
okay? How about this is just kind of a thought experiment. How would you feel about um the Mavericks running it back? Hear me out. Running it back next year, but so basically keep Kyrie, keep Luka, and as your two main ball handlers, but then fill the roster with fucking a bunch of 3-point shooters and a bunch of 3-and-D guys, a bunch of
I
three. So you have Kyrie and Luka basically always handling the ball, but then you have 3-and-D guys all up and down the roster, where every time he passes out, he makes a shot. Just
I don't
thoughts.
I don't think that'll work because at some point one of those two is inevitably going to get hurt, or if they're just getting clamped up, someone's going to have to be able to make stuff happen. And on
Yeah.
top of that, they also should not capitalize. They should really look into getting a six man too. Now that I think about it,
Well,
because
yeah, maybe it would be interesting to do that 3-and-D idea, but then also having like just a freaking microwave player off the bench. You
Malik
know, keep
Monk,
that. What's that?
Malik
Yeah,
Monk,
imagine having 3-and-D all up and down the roster, and then a Malik Monk off the bench or something like that. That would be crazy,
that would be
and that's
amazing.
something kind of like semi-realistic given I imagine their cap salary and everything. You know, if for whatever reason Paul George, I mean that might probably, you know, if that doesn't work out or something like that of a caliber of that guy, I think you could probably move around pieces to kind of construct a roster like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but you
And I
have to be
think
careful with those with the buy-in teams or buying teams because
yeah.
or no, bot teams. That's the word I'm looking for. Because we've all seen that like the best teams, especially like dynasties, it's because they're homegrown. Like the
Mm-hmm.
Spurs of old, the Warriors, soon to be Thunder, soon to be
Yeah.
Spurs. Like you don't want
Yeah.
to
You don't want
you
to be the
don't
Lakers.
yeah, you don't want to be the Lakers. You don't want to be the Suns. Like good
Mm-hmm.
grief. Like even the Timberwolves, like they're two main guys they drafted from home and they made a big investment with Rudy Gobert. So like that's and then also Jaden McDaniels, he was homegrown too.
Mm-hmm.
So like all these really good teams, like the Celtics, all their main guys, they were actually I shouldn't say all of them, but like Jason and Jalen, they're both homegrown team players.
You could even say, I mean, Derek White's been there for a while too. You know,
Yeah, he got traded from the Spurs, but he's been there for a little bit. So it's
yeah.
like, what is it? You don't. I'm not a fan of just buying teams, you know, just paying all these players and not like really establishing like a culture.
No, that's yeah.
Like
I
that's a
agree with that.
huge thing.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
yeah, so they just kind of have to tread carefully for the Mavericks. Like
for
they're
sure.
past the point because when Luka got too good too early, it kind of eliminated the draft homegrown. So it's like really
Yeah,
hard to find that
it's
balance
tough. It's
because
literally it's another LeBron James, a Cleveland Cavaliers scenario where I mean, just like I'm not comparing them exactly, but it's similar in nature where LeBron just literally from year one was just dominating, just like how Luka from year one has. I mean, no matter what, that's it. They are in a tough situation because they with Luke on your team, you're never gonna. I mean, you're always gonna be at least an eighth seed, so you're never gonna be getting a good draft pick. You know?
yeah, they got so lucky this last year or last year when they dropped out of the playoffs. Like they made the right decision because it got them Derek Lively, which has been, I think, the biggest difference maker on this team. Like
Definitely.
I don't think that can be understated. How
Can't wait to do it.
impactful Derek Lively is.
Yeah, for real. I agree.
Like the stat sheet, it's not going to show everything because he averaged like 9.7 rebounds and like 1.5 blocks, but he
Mm-hmm.
shot like 75% from the field. But
He's
him,
young too, you
yeah,
know.
he just turned 20 in February, I think.
February
But
up.
yeah, but like he might, like, if his 3-point shot turns into something, because in high school he was a shooter. I should say shooter, but he would shoot the ball even though he's 7'2". If
Mm-hmm.
he is like an actual threat from three that makes teams actually have to guard him, he is going to be the best floor spacer in the NBA. Like as a pure floor spacer, because he's a really good lob threat, because he's an athletic 7'2". He glides around the court, and if he can stretch the floor out from three, like it's just unbelievable what you can, like how that can affect the game, especially with
Definitely.
Luke and Kyrie.
I was gonna say when you pair a guy like Derek Lively or even like a Daniel Gafford with, I mean, Luca kind of almost needs one of those type of guys, those like super dynamic, super athletic, role threats. Where I mean, Luca's just getting easy money lobs all the time. You know.
Yeah, we saw how much that changed the course of their season as soon as they traded for Gafford. But
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
with just Lively, like it was such a huge upgrade over what is it, Dwight Powell? Yeah.
Yeah. I play. Well, that was. Oh man. Yeah, dude,
Hey
that was.
man, great
That's
guy,
crazy.
but
Yeah, no, great guy for sure. But that's just crazy. Like when you really think about it, him actually like that's kind of how bad the roster was last year and the year before when you had to basically you were relying on Dwight Powell as one of your key pieces. You know, that's crazy.
yeah, and the fact that they don't even have to play him anymore is
Mm-hmm.
fantastic. But another thing that I really like about Derek Lively is he's very, very intelligent. Like his passing ability out of the short roll, because if he knows that there's gonna be the help is gonna step up, he can just stop, catch it, and then make the outlet, or not even outlet pass, but just fire it off to the corners, find open guys. He's really, really good at that. There's a reason he was the number one player coming out of his high school class. Like Derek Lively is great, and he was such a good pickup at 12. Like and they even, like, as a bonus, like they got off of the Bertans contract.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that was yeah. But you got who went to Washington, right? They got him off the
No, they traded him to OKC.
oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah. He went from Washington to the Mavericks, and yeah, yeah. That contract. I mean, it was crazy because he was so. I mean, he wasn't so good for Washington, but I mean, he was like insane 3-point shooter for
Yeah, the
Washington, and then
Latvian laser.
yep, and then as soon as he got to the Mavericks, he was not good,
Yeah, because
not good
I mean, he still shoots, but he couldn't guard a pole.
for real, for real.
Yeah, but yeah, I think the Mavericks, they have to find someone who can also take the ball out of Luca's hands while also being good off the ball, which is a hard task, but
Mhm.
you just that's what you have to try and do to maximize this roster.
Definitely.
Yeah. But to moving away from our uh the finals pairing, what are some of your thoughts just from the overall season now that it's officially over? The playoffs have concluded, we have our champion. So what
Right.
have you thought about the season as a whole?
Well, I like I said, it was a super interesting season, just given that like the West to me was super shocking, just like how close the race really was, like down to the wire, and the surprise of the Timberwolves coming out, the Nuggets, it took a while for them to get there, kind of get their groove on, and that ended up kind of affecting them going into the playoffs. They kind of just stalled out. The Suns, I mean, everyone knew that roster wasn't going to work. You know what I mean? Um, but I think what's super interesting to me is the West has kind of always been I mean, they still are, but always been super dominant. But them kind of struggling and keeping everyone from like the 1 to 8 was super close, which I guess that has a lot to do with the level of competition on that side.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like I said, I got a few things I want to say about the Blazers and the Bucks. As you know, I'm a Blazer fan, and I'm a newly acquainted Bucks fan because I'm a Lillard fan. So
Lillard loyalist.
yeah, Lillard loyalist indeed, and super disappointing season. It's been bad on both sides, man. As a Lillard fan and as a Blazer fan, because we got Scoot Henderson over Brandon Miller, which I'll be honest, I was actually like hyped on Scoot Henderson, and I was like, okay, this actually might work because he's super athletic. He's like a 6'3", 6'4" point guard. He still got time, but it just wasn't the best year for him.
Yeah, it was
Brandon,
rough because it's hard to get any consistency on top of just his overall struggles. But I will say, statistically, he was very much on par with Russell Westbrook as a rookie. So there's some hope there, but there's also a lot of like real glaring weaknesses and things that are very scary because like for the first like half of the season, like it seemed like he had no idea what he was doing.
it was bad, dude. Like just the eye test alone, it was like literally, yeah, it was. He looked lost on the floor, man. For the first half, he definitely picked it up a little bit near the end. That gave me a lot of hope. He had some, definitely some flashes of
Mm-hmm.
potential. And then Shane Sharp, who I've been super high on, I'm still am. It sucked that he got injured midway through the season. He was like averaging something like 22 a game before he got that injury. He came back, and I mean, his statistics fell off. But I won't
Yeah, he dropped off pretty hard. I was like,
pretty hard. But he's still super young. I really like his game. He's what is he like 6'6"? I think he's like 6'6". He's
yeah,
super. I mean, his jumper is freaking money. I think he just got to bulk up a little bit, and
he's also got a 50-inch vertical. Fun
yeah,
fact.
insane, absolutely insane.
Ridiculous athlete. But yeah. And then also I think there's some hope for the Blazers. I wonder what they're gonna do with their draft picks this year because they have 2 lottery picks. So
And
I've
that's
heard
another thing that really bummed me out as a Blazer fan, man. The fact that we were the worst team in the West and we didn't even scratch like the top 5 picks.
no, but at least you got two lottery picks.
Yeah, definitely. I'm
Yeah.
really interested in what they do. I honestly, I think I'm really interested to see what they do. But the Bucks, when I look at the Bucks, man, like it's just it's kind of a nightmare because I mean you had I mean you just go from top. I mean it's literally from top to bottom, man. You had Budenholzer, who was a great coach. You fired him allegedly because it was Giannis. We don't know that. That's just what they say. Who
No,
knows?
The thing with Budenholzer is he kept making the same mistakes year in and year out, and it's just
That's
like
true. He
someone's
didn't
got
get.
to take this be the scapegoat for that anyway. And he kind
Yeah,
of did it to himself. But then with
but
Adrian Griffin, they didn't give him a chance at all.
yeah, I think, and I was really hoping in the offseason. I mean, Nick Nurse would have been really good for this team. He would have been so good, and they didn't even. I don't even think they even tried to make a play for him, which is
I think the
blows my.
Sixers just picked him up way too quickly.
Yeah, that's true. But
Because
then getting Doc Rivers, which oh my god, what a nightmare, dude! What a nightmare.
yeah,
Oh, dude,
dude was
everyone knew.
making it so apparent that he didn't want to be there before he even got the job. And then it
I
was
know.
like, yeah, like
And then
firing a coach mid-season when you're a number 2 seed is already ridiculous. But it's like
I know,
I get it because he just was not meshing with the players at all.
yeah.
That's the problem. Like you
But
shouldn't
if you're
hire
gonna do that,
first
you
year
go.
coaches.
Yeah, but then you do that and you go for Doc Rivers, like I
Yeah.
get there wasn't a big pool of coaches, but of all people, I probably can kind of they're like, oh, we got a championship pedigree coach and we don't really have a lot of choices. So, but at the end of the day, we know Doc Rivers, we know his resume, we know. I mean, I don't think there's ever been a coach that has failed. He's got that one championship with the bot Celtics where they basically bought that roster for what like
Mm-hmm.
1 years. But other than that, man, it's been nothing but failure after failure, like some of the worst failures of all time, like some of the biggest collapses of all time, like
Yep.
multiple too, not just one, multiple. So I once that happened, I knew it was over, and that's when I was pretty high on the Bucks. But then once Doc Rivers came, I started kind of like really looking into it. And I'm like, okay, you got Doc Rivers, you got one of the oldest rosters in the league. I'm literally one of the oldest rosters in the league. You have no draft assets. Your salary cap is freaking insane high because you got Lillard who's on a supermax. You got Giannis who's on a supermax. It's just there's really
Not a lot of flexibility.
Not a lot of flexibility. I do kind of hold out hope since I know Lillard throughout the off season, the prior off season before the season, he was going through some family troubles and stuff, and so he had a pretty rough year just outside of basketball, which led him to show up to training camp without having even played any basketball. So I think you really can't do much with the age of the roster, but I'm hoping with a rejuvenated Lillard, I know he's getting older, but rejuvenated Lillard, I still believe in the Giannis Dame dynamic. The potential was not shown this year at all, but I still think that dynamic can be super lethal once they get some training camp behind them, a full year, Lillard being able to actually train throughout the offseason and train with Giannis so they can get comfortable with each other. Mm-hmm. It'll be interesting. I mean, the age issue though is still pretty bad, and the fact that their roster, it really showed in the playoffs that they're just not deep at all. I love Chris Middleton. He's been amazing. He's definitely lost a step. He was really good. I mean, he was kind of the saving grace throughout the playoffs. He was
cooking that play in that Pacers series.
Yeah, he was our saving grace. Like so that was really cool to see. But I mean, you got like Pat Connaughton off your bench, like like it's not looking too good. So I'll be interested to see what they do.
I just think that they should look towards the draft. Maybe sign some young guys, give them a chance.
Yeah, that's the issue. Did they fire Doc Rivers yet?
No, he's still there, and he's probably going to be there for the rest of the next season at least.
That's the issue. If you got young guys, they're not going to get played because you got Doc Rivers. You don't play young guys.
Hey, you know what? They're getting older, though. They're getting older, so he's going to think about
it. Maybe, yeah.
Yeah. But with that being said, we are out of time for this meeting. So, Roman, I want to say thank you, and I appreciate you for coming on here. We'll definitely have some more future episodes with you on. So, once again, thank you, and everyone tuning in, really appreciate you guys. It's always fun to talk about basketball, and I love it to death, and I hope you guys do too. So again, thank you for joining. Like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube, and hope everyone has a great day.
Appreciate you, Collin.
Appreciate you, Roman.